U.S. and partner nations carried out 14 intense strikes against ISIS strongholds in Raqqa, Syria, and other northern cities. The attacks destroying or damaging multiple targets, including training compounds, headquarters, and command and control facilities, and briefly knocking out power in the region. U.S. forces launching Tomahawk land attack missiles from the sea. Bombers, drones, and fighter jets continuing the assault by air, including an F-22 Raptor, a new Air Force tactical plane that can conduct air-to-air and air-to-ground combat with near impunity.
The American people and the world were waiting to see how the Obama administration would drop the first hammer on the latest band of international killers who take no prisoners and are determined to murder as many as they can, as often as they can. That hammer was always going to be airstrikes, and with the first counter now delivered, there are new enemies involved, new allies to ponder, and the question is, of course, where do we go from here? Welcome back to MidPoint. Senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, a former senior advisor to multiple organizations on terrorism and counterinsurgency issues, former Army Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, and the chairman of Stand Up America, retired U.S. Army Major General and co-author of the book Endgame, The Blueprint for Victory in the War on Terror, General Paul Vallely. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks, Rich.
General, I'm going to start with you. How comprehensive, in your opinion, and how proper a strike was this first effort?
Well, I don't think we know right now, Ed. Usually they break this targeting down into primary, secondary, and tertiary targets. So it depends on the priority of the targets, and we'll have to wait for the bomb damage assessment to see how effective they've been. But it appears at first cut that the intensity is still not what it should be, with all those multiple targets that extend all the way into Aleppo and then back all the way across the border into northern Iraq. So we'll have to wait and see what they come out with and what they report.
Lieutenant Colonel Shaffer, your assessment.
Well, I think it's a beginning. I think when you look back at the Democrats' criticism of George Bush's coalition to go into Iraq, this is a bit humorous. UAE, Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And one of the missing major players is England, UK. While I think it's laudable that President Obama acted as he did, and I know General Austin. I worked for him in Afghanistan when he was a brigadier. This is not a serious effort yet. And Ed, we talked about this here several times. You've got to be comprehensive. You've got to have an understanding of what the second and third order effects are going to be by any action you take. And simply put, right now we need to get back and increase the frequency of attacks. We have to get back at looking at how we can search for those hostages. I think people are tending to forget about the fact that ISIL still has a ton of hostages. They're hiding at this first. And for goodness sake, we have to be careful now, because now we're interfering in the internal mechanisms between Iran and Hezbollah and Syria by the fact that those are Shia Arabs. So there's a real problem here if we don't carefully proceed and watch out how we move this, because we could actually fuel a Sunni Shia war expansion without intending to do so.
General, let's get down to that serious effort comment as well. Is this the sort of, and I do use the word war because that's what it is, we're not going to go ahead and sugarcoat it here, but where you had the one big evening here, the media all leads with it, we're talking about it, we see the pictures right now, and of course America gets to look at a nation at war. But is this the sort of effort where you have to go in every single day? You cannot wait for one night to go by, maybe even the day itself, but you've got to pound and pound away if you even have a thought of being successful.
Well, that again, it goes back to the targeting and what you've targeted and what you have good intel on. And then from that, you go ahead and send out your sorties. And in this case, we have a few sorties, I guess, from some of these coalition partners. I doubt if they're very great in number. But again, I was in Aleppo last year. I know the lay of the land out there. It's mostly open desert with a few trees. So, if we can get these ISIS forces on the move and target them, again, what we call targets of opportunity, then that's what we should be doing. But Tony's right. I mean, the lack of intensity here, if we're really serious, we're going to go in to pound them. And heck, I would bring the B-52s in from Diego Garcia. I would have the C-130 gunships that can rake a football field just by a couple passes around the circle. So all of those things, you know, we can take a laser bomb and put it down a smokestack. We can read a license plate on a vehicle. So it's no excuse for not going ahead and pounding these targets. You know, and most of these cities, especially in Syria, have all been evacuated. Hundreds of thousands that have gone into Turkey and into Jordan. So it's not like they're heavily populated areas anymore. Of course, Assad was bombing his own people in these cities for the last 3 to 4 years.
General, you touched on exactly the next spot I was going to go to. Tony, I'm going to give you first shot at this right now. The fact that we have telegraphed this, the fact that everybody knew we were coming, it was going to happen sooner or later, you have to believe that ISIS is smart enough, and also the different various terrorist groups that are there, they've left. They were prepared for this. Certainly there's going to be a lot of damage. We're going to see a lot of buildings blown up. But it also looks to the fact that this group morphs and mutates very well. They were prepared for this, which is why you got to keep going after them.
I agree. I think we achieved tactical surprise. Frankly, Ed, if I were President Obama, the moment I announced that we were bombing, I would have been bombing. I mean, literally, during the speech, the first bombs would have hit the targets. With that said, as the General said, we have to now persist in trying to figure out where they're scrambling to. And we have some extraordinarily well-suited weapon systems for this. He mentioned the AC-130. This is primarily a permissive environment that could do a lot during the evening. We have something called the A-10, which was called the Cross of Death by the Iraqis. You know, a lot of these ISIS guys have to move city to city via roads, and those things can loiter for hours. And I'm telling you right now, we could make it miserable for anybody in ISIS to pop their head up ever. And I agree with the General. We've got to go back to some of these places and be carpet bombed, because we have to destroy the image of ISIS. Not only destroy ISIS, you have to destroy the image of ISIS, because of what they've done. They portrayed themselves as a strong force. And that is a large symbolic element that helps them recruit people to their cause. We have to dissuade them from being recruited, and the best way to do that is to show physical destruction of the ISIS infrastructure for what it is right now.
A couple of minutes we have left, and I want you both to hear the president, and here he's talking specifically about the fact that, in his opinion, America is not alone in this fight. Here it is.
Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Bahrain, and Qatar. America is proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with these nations on behalf of our common security. The strength of this coalition makes it clear to the world that this is not America's fight alone. Above all, the people and governments of the Middle East are rejecting ISIL and standing up for the peace and security that the people of the region and the world deserve.
General, should we be impressed with the individual countries that we now have involved as allies?
Well, I would say semi-impressed. I mean, it's great they're on board. I'm glad they're doing it. But, you know, Turkey has been supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and a lot of the activities there. So when you don't have a big country there that's very, very influential in that area, then you're missing a very strong partner. You know, and I've been to Egypt, and Egypt's really so involved with their own security down there with the Sinai and the Suez and Libya and Sudan to the south, that I would like to see Jordan doing more. King Abdullah knows that he's got to do something. And so the Saudis, with all of that armaments that they have, they should be running themselves 50 sorties a day. So as I said, it's a target-rich area, and the intensity goes on until you obliterate all those targets through those lists. And then also what we don't understand is the misconception of the Free Syrian Army, made up of those generals that defected and colonels, and they're on the ground. They are the eyes and ears if we would use them properly.
Tony, I've only got about 30 seconds left. What do you make of this new threat that we're now hearing about, the Khorasan? It's the first time the American public has heard about this group.
Yeah, it's highly shadowy and apparently very well motivated and trained. A lot of leaders who in Al-Qaeda who actually understand this have actually been looking at infrastructure targets and how to penetrate them. And Ed, a lot of us have spent a lot of time doing something called red teaming. We actually look at our own weaknesses, and we try to prevent others from figuring them out. sounds like this group was intelligent enough to try to actually use our own methodology against us to figure things out. I think that's what was very frightening for our intelligence leaders. With that said, it's good that they move forward, but as General Vallely said, the root of all this is still the Muslim Brotherhood. Until we go after the Brotherhood and start getting at the root of which feeds all these other organizations, you will continue to see these Al-Qaeda elements pop up, cause problems. We got to go at the root. We got to do it sooner than later.
And the terrorists are getting smarter every single day.
Absolutely.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, Major General Paul Vallely, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We'll speak again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Stay with us, because right here on MidPoint, every single day, we question everything.